Imagine walking into a bustling market, the air rich with the aroma of spices and the hum of vibrant conversations, and stumbling across a treasure, a bronze statue so intricately detailed it seems to whisper the stories of a kingdom long lost. Now imagine that treasure wasn't for sale, but stolen, ripped from the heart of its homeland, in a moment of violent upheaval. This is not just a story of art, but of history, empire, and an enduring question. Can a people ever reclaim what was taken from them? This brings us to 1897, a year that saw one of the most devastating cultural pillages in modern history. The Kingdom of Benin, located in present-day Nigeria, was a thriving empire known for its sophisticated governance, rich traditions, and unmatched artistry. At the center of its cultural heritage were the famed Benin Bronzes, stunning works of art that captured centuries of history, spirituality, and craftsmanship. Yet the kingdom's legacy was abruptly shattered by British imperial ambition. The British forces' justification for their invasion was the killing of a British delegation. But history tells a more complex story. In January 1897, a British delegation led by Acting Consul General James Phillips attempted to enter Benin City uninvited, despite warnings that the Oba, the king, was engaged in sacred religious ceremonies and could not receive visitors. This was not a mere social misstep. It was a blatant disregard for the kingdom's traditions and sovereignty. The delegation's decision to press forward sparked conflict, and several members were killed in the ensuing ambush. This incident gave Britain the excuse it needed to launch what it called a punitive expedition. The word punitive was a deliberate framing, an attempt to mask the expedition's true intentions. For Britain, this wasn't just about avenging their fallen men. It was about seizing control of Benin's resources and art, while sending a stark message to other African kingdoms. Resistance to colonial rule would come at a devastating cost. In February 1897, over 2,200 British soldiers and officers descended upon Benin City. They arrived heavily armed with Maxim guns, a weapon that gave them an insurmountable advantage over the kingdom's defenders. The city fell quickly. What followed was an orgy of violence and destruction that shocked even some of the expedition's participants. Benin City was burned to the ground. The royal palace, a sprawling complex that was not only a political seat but also a cultural and spiritual heart, was razed. Thousands of objects were looted, bronze plaques and sculptures, ivory carvings, and other treasures that had been created to honor ancestors, deities, and the Oba himself. These artifacts weren't mere decorations. They were sacred items imbued with deep spiritual and historical significance. After the city's destruction, the looted artifacts were transported to Britain. There they were sold to museums, private collectors, and institutions across Europe and America to fund the expedition. Over 4,000 items were dispersed, scattering Benin's cultural heritage across the globe. The most famous of these artifacts are the Benin Bronzes, exquisite plaques and sculptures made of brass and bronze. They are widely regarded as some of the greatest achievements in African art, yet they remain out of reach for the people of Nigeria. Today, they can be found in major museums like the British Museum in London, the Louvre in Paris, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. For decades, these institutions have argued that the artifacts are safer in their care, citing reasons ranging from better preservation facilities to the global audience they attract. But this perspective ignores the trauma and injustice of their removal. It's as though the world celebrates the art but ignores the suffering of the people who created it. In recent years, calls for the repatriation of the Benin Bronzes have grown louder. Nigerian officials, activists, and cultural advocates argue that the artifacts belong in Nigeria, where they can be reunited with their historical and cultural context. Some progress has been made. Institutions in Germany, France, and other countries have begun returning pieces of their collections. In 2021, the University of Aberdeen and the Horniman Museum in London made headlines for returning some of the bronzes. Still, many major institutions, including the British Museum, have resisted wholesale repatriation. They cite legal complexities, ownership claims, and the logistical challenges of returning thousands of objects. But at its heart, this debate isn't just about logistics. It's about justice. Can the damage of colonialism ever truly be undone? And who gets to decide what happens to cultural heritage? The story of the Benin Bronzes is not just about the past, it's about the present and future. It's about acknowledging the impact of colonialism and working toward a more equitable world. It's about ensuring that the descendants of the Kingdom of Benin have access to their own history. And it's about challenging the narrative that Western institutions have the sole right to define what happens to global heritage. As more voices join the call for repatriation, the conversation is shifting. The return of even a single artifact is a powerful act of reconciliation, a step toward healing the wounds of history. Yet, the journey is far from over. The Benin Bronzes are more than just art. They are symbols of a people's resilience, creativity, and spirit. They represent a history that was violently interrupted but not erased. And as the world grapples with questions of restitution and reparations, the story of the Benin Bronzes stands as a reminder of what was lost and what could still be regained. So the next time you see one of these treasures in a museum, pause and ask yourself, what does it mean for this object to be here, so far from home? And what would it take for it to finally return?